All right, I showed 3 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you, those of you who are live with us. For those of you who don't know, I'm Dr. Christy Mulkey, and I am the workshop coordinator for 240 Tutoring, and I am live in our TExES study and test prep group on Facebook to talk to you today about the Science of Teaching Reading exam. So this is a series we've had going for a few weeks now, and I'm live every Tuesday afternoon to continue working through the preparation you need for this exam. So I'm going to share my screen with you to get started. If you have any questions anywhere along the way in this video, just drop those in the comments. I'm watching them alongside, and I will try to answer those as we go. If you are watching this after the live has ended, feel free to go ahead and drop comments in. I will be going back and checking those and trying to answer as many of those as possible. And so let's get started and look at the Science of Teaching Reading exam. So I'm going to share my screen with you. Make sure all of that's working. For having any difficulty with sound or anything, somebody just drop me a comment and I will take a look. Make sure everything's working. Hopefully you're seeing my screen at this point. My extra screen is frozen, so I'm just making sure that's working. Okay. I think we're good. Yes. Okay. So again, we're looking at the Science of Teaching Reading exam for TExES, and that's number 293. And today we're going to be looking at competencies 4, 5, 7, and 8. And I am jumping around like that because of clustered questions in the preparation manual. So when we get into those questions, I'll explain what that means, and you'll understand kind of why I pulled different competencies there. Okay, so the structure of these videos, it's specific to this test, your state. We're going to talk through the standards or the competencies, and then we're going to work through some practice questions together where I can give you some strategy and give you some explanation. Now, we've done 3 weeks of these videos. The first week was an overview of the exam. On September 15th, I did competencies 1 and 3, and last week was competencies 2 and 6. So if you missed those, go back and check those videos out. You can see them right here in our Facebook group. You can just go to the media link and click on videos, or you can scroll down through the feed and find them that way. They're also on our YouTube channel, so you can check them out there. Next week, we'll be finishing up competencies for 2 more weeks, and then we'll be looking at the constructive response question at the very end of October. All right. So the overview of this test, the only part I'm going to talk about today as far as the overview, if you missed that overview video, go check it out, is we are looking at the selected response question. So that's what we're looking at today. And on your test, you'll have 5 hours and you'll have 90 selected response questions, which are basically multiple choice questions. And then you'll have 1 constructed response question where you actually have to write. And we'll talk about that in a few weeks. Now, on the website where they give you the entire study guide or preparation manual, you will find the framework and overview for this exam, the domain and competencies, and then you'll find 25 sample selected response questions with rationales. Then you will find 25 additional sample questions without. I am pulling from this bank. Okay, so I'm trying to give you the rationales for the questions that they don't give you the rationales. So that's what we're working through. So if you're taking this exam, this is going to be super helpful for you. All right, let's look at those competencies we're looking at today. So we're looking at competency 4, which is phonological and phonemic awareness. And if you've watch the introductory video, the overview video, you understand the color coding behind this and how I broke down these competencies. But we're at those lower levels of Bloom's. We're looking at understanding and demonstrating knowledge of phonological and phonemic awareness. Then we're looking at understanding and demonstrating knowledge of print concepts and alphabet knowledge. And that's competencies 4 and 5. Then if we jump to 7, same verbs, understand and demonstrate knowledge of syllabication and morphemic analysis skills. And then down here at the bottom, understanding and demonstrating knowledge of fluency. And what does that mean? So let's go through some of these competencies descriptive statements. Now, I'm putting this up on the screen knowing that the font is probably too small for you to read. My intention is not to read it to you or have you read it off your screen, but just to point out, under every competency, you have descriptive statements. Guys, you need to read these descriptive statements. The verbiage, the vocabulary that's in these descriptive statements often reoccurs in the questions and answer choices. And so if you read through these descriptive statements and you don't know what a word in here means, that's a word you need to look up. That's a word you need to practice using in your vocabulary. So very important that you read the descriptive statements, and you can see these exist for competency 4. There are actually quite a lot of them for competency 5. Some of you are like, what's alphabet knowledge? What does that mean? It tells you down here the alphabetic principle. It's telling you, what do you need to look up? What do you need to know? Then if we look at competency 7, syllabication, if you don't know what morphemic analysis is, these descriptive statements are going to help you figure out what does that entail. So I can't recommend enough for you that you read those descriptive statements. Now I'm just going to check my technology here because I lost my live feed, and I'm just going to make sure that's working and I'm not missing any comments. So give me just a moment. All right, still appears to be working. I'm not seeing any comments yet. Okay, wonderful. Now, let's look at, and I don't think I said this, but competency 8 on fluency, you also have several descriptive statements breaking down what fluency should be for you. Okay, now let's get into some practice questions, and we're going to work these together, and I'm going to give you that rationale behind them. So this one comes from competency 4, so phonological and phonemic awareness. It's number 29 in the preparation manual. It says a pre-kindergarten teacher, so note there, pre-kindergarten teacher, frequently engages children in circle time activities, such as the activities described below. So I'm just noting some keywords there. Number 1, the teacher leads children in clapping the syllables of each classmate's name. Number 2, the teacher helps count how many syllables they hear in the classmates' names. 3, the teacher has children with the same number of syllables in their names stand up and clap their classmates' names as a group. According to Convergent research, activities such as these are most effective in helping young children. Now, before we get into those answer choices, I want to just highlight a few things that I heard in common here. I heard clapping more than once, and I heard syllables. Here I heard counting syllables, and I also heard names. Then down here we have syllables, clapping, and again, names. So lots of repetition there. Let's look at these answer choices. It says, according to Convergent research, activities such as these are most effective in helping young children. A, recognize that their name has sounds that can be represented by the letters of the alphabet. B, discriminate individual speech sounds and names to help facilitate their learning how to write their own name. C, build phonological sensitivity by attending to the phonological structure of meaningful words such as names. And D, connect the letters in their name to the sounds of each of the letters makes. All right, so let's talk about one thing here first, this term, convergent research. Guys, this is just big words to try to throw you off. Let me just break this down for you. In easy terms, divergent is going to be a wide view, looking at lots of things, lots of options. Convergent comes to one answer or one solution. So convergent research is looking at a specific problem and how to solve that specific problem. So they're all coming together on one problem. It's really irrelevant to the question. You can totally answer that without knowing what convergent research means. It's helpful because it doesn't throw you off as much, but there you go. If you didn't know what convergent and divergent meant, that can apply to questioning, research, all kinds of things. Just remember convergent, all coming to the same thing, divergent, multiple things. Okay? Now, to answer this question, let's visualize what the teacher's actually doing in this activity. So let's pretend I'm the teacher, and I'm going to lead the children in clapping the syllables of their classmates' names. So let's take my name, for example, Christy. All right? Christy. And we do that with lots of children's names in the class. Andrew, Thomas, Elizabeth. Okay, so we're clapping the syllables of those names. And then the teacher helps children count how many syllables they hear. Christy, Eric, Moses. All right, so we're counting those out. All right. Sue, there's one, okay? Then 3, the teacher has children with the same number of syllables in their name stand up and count as a group. So she might say, I might say, who has 2 syllables in their name? Brantley stands up. All right, let's clap out the syllables to your name. Brantley, all right? So we're clapping while we're saying those syllables. Now, there was no mention of work with letters or individual sounds in this activity. So no mention of work with letters or individual sounds. Syllable awareness falls under the general phonological awareness umbrella, all right? Remember, a syllable is a unit of a word with a vowel sound. So choice C might throw you off with the wording phonological sensitivity and phonological structure, but all this means is that the students will be sensitive to or aware of the sound structure of words. So really, when we're talking about syllables and we're doing all this, we're looking at the sound structure of that words. So answer choice C in this case is best. Now let's talk about why the wrong answers are wrong. Choices A and D describe the alphabetic principle. So if you don't know what that is, remember that's one of those things that's mentioned in those descriptive statements. You can go look that up. And again, there was no mention of individual letters or the sounds they make. That's the alphabetic principle, those individual letters and the sounds that they make. So A and D can be ruled out. So we're down to choice B and C. Choice B is incorrect because the students did not practice discriminating individual sounds in the activity. They segmented their names into syllables, and answer choice B is looking at individual speech sounds, and it's also talking about writing their name, which was never mentioned in this scenario. So answer choice B is incorrect. Again, the correct answer here is C. I'm just going to check comments, make sure we don't have any questions. Okay, nothing that needs to be answered at this moment. So we're going to move on to the next question. This one's from Competency 5, looking at print concepts and alphabet knowledge. And it says, a kindergarten teacher meets with individual students and asks them to point to the words in the text of a familiar nursery rhyme as the teacher and student read the nursery rhyme aloud together. So picture kindergarten, they're one at a time. She's asking students to point as they read aloud together. Some students demonstrate understanding of the directionality of print by sweeping their finger as they read, but they are not able to accurately point to the individual words. Other students who readily associate letters with sounds use this understanding to guide their finger as they point to a word that starts with the sound they hear at the beginning of the spoken word. The second group of students clearly try to match their speech to the print as they say the words. The teacher can best use the results of this informal assessment to determine which students are able to A, apply key concepts related to the alphabetic principle, B, identify accurately the sounds of each letter of the alphabet, C, perform phonological awareness tasks at the syllable level, or D, demonstrate advanced knowledge of key concepts of print. So there was a lot of text here. So I'm going to note a few key things here. We are looking at kindergarten. We are looking at individual students. And this first group, it says some are able to just They know their finger's supposed to move this way as they read, but their finger's not actually identifying words as they read. And then other students are actually able to point to the word as they hear the beginning sound. And then she has a second group of students who are able to point to the words as they read. Okay, so let's just simplify what the two groups of students can and cannot do. All right, one group of students can identify words in text based on the letter they start with and the first sound they hear in the word. The other group cannot. This accurately describes one group of students applying the alphabetic principle and the other group not. Okay, so we've got one group of students who can point to those words as they hear those sounds and one group of students who cannot. So choice A best describes what information the teacher can get from this informal assessment. So apply key concepts related to the alphabetic principle. Now let's talk about the wrong answers. It says B says identify accurately the sounds of each letter of the alphabet. Well, not every letter sound is presented in this scenario, so we can eliminate this answer choice. This assessment sounds more like a formal assessment. So if we actually wanted to accurately identify the sounds of each letter of the alphabet, we would likely do this more formally, individually, and say, come show me, or come tell me what this sound this letter makes, what sound this letter makes. But in this scenario, it sounds like the teacher's basically, can you show me what you can do in this book? And that's the scenario here. So we're not looking at individual sounds. So B is not correct. We're not just matching letter to sound. Now, there is no syllabication work presented in this scenario. And notice in answer choice C, it says syllable. All right. Phonological awareness tasks at the syllable level are more likely to present themselves as students performing things like clapping out syllables in words, just like we saw in the previous question. So C is also not correct. Then the concept of print, directionality is what it's talking about here, is described in the scenario. So we have those few students who could accurately demonstrate directionality, but is used as a comparison to what the students who are not applying the alphabetic principle can do. What is really being assessed here is whether or not students can apply their knowledge of letters and sounds to identify words. So answer choice D is tempting because it talks about that tracking element, that directionality, but it is not the best picture of this informal assessment. All right, so let's move on to the next question. This one is also on competency 5, so print concepts and alphabet knowledge. And it says a third grade teacher reviews data on literacy skills of several beginning level English learners who did not attend school prior to moving to the United States. Okay, there was a whole bunch of key information in this sentence. I'm going to note that. We've got third grade, and we've got beginning level English learners. So they're that emergent level who did not attend school prior to moving to the United States. The teacher wants to plan an appropriate small group reading instruction for the students. Which of the following types of text would best meet the reading developmental needs of English learners who are at an emergent stage of English language development and the pre-alphabetic phase of word reading? Okay, so let's think about the group of students we're working with here. They're at the beginning level of English language learning, and since they did not attend school before moving to the United States, they did not have strong literacy skills in their first language either. So they don't have literacy skills in their native language or in their first language or in English. So let's spotlight a few words. I already kind of did that for you, but we've got right here in the question who are at the emergent stage and pre-alphabetic phase of word reading. Okay, so really emergent here. And let's reread that question. Which of the following types of text would best meet the reading development needs of English language learners who are at the emergent stage of English language development and the pre-alphabetic phase of word reading? So we have A, decodable stories, B, informational text, C, predictable text, and D, age-appropriate stories. All right. Although they are third grade students, we need to treat them like the beginning readers they are. All right, so they are very much beginning readers, even though they're third graders. Out of the choices, the most helpful for students learning to read would be predictable text. All right, so things that are predictable. They don't know letters, they don't know sounds, they're at that very emergent stage of learning to read, even though they're third graders. So let's talk about these other answer choices. In order for decodable stories to be correct, students would need some basic literacy skills. In order to decode, they have to have some basic literacy skills, knowledge of letters and sounds and all of that. So A is not appropriate because they don't have those skills yet. Now, what's interesting about choices B and D is we really don't have enough information about these two texts to call this the most appropriate choice. So informational text does not give us enough information to determine whether or not it would be a good choice for this group of students. Informational text just means nonfiction. So the levels and structures vary greatly in that grand scheme of nonfiction text. So we can rule out B simply because that's too broad. It doesn't give us enough information. Choice D, not T, D doesn't give us enough information either. While it would not be a great choice to hand a third grade student what they might think of as a baby book, age appropriate could mean a wide variety of things. The book for the third graders should not only be age appropriate, but also contain elements such as predictable text that will be helpful in developing those literacy skills in this group of students that are beginning readers. So this just does not tell us enough either. Predictable text. All right, let's move on to the next one. Two more, guys. This one's coming from Competency 7, which is syllabication and morphemic analysis skills. It says a second grade teacher divides the class into pairs and presents each pair of students with a unique set of word cards. The teacher models how to match two word cards to build a new word, e.g. mail plus box equals mailbox, and some plus thing equals something. The teacher then challenges the students to work with their partners to build as many new words as they can using their own set of word cards. The students are assigned to make a list of their new words and draft a sentence for 3 of the words. Afterward, each pair of students reads aloud their list of words and sentences to the class. This activity supports students' reading development primarily by promoting their ability to A, determine the meaning of words containing common roots and affixes, B, read aloud text with appropriate accuracy, rate, and prosody, C, self-correct errors when reading multisyllabic words in connected text, D, decode compound words quickly and accurately while reading. Hopefully this one's fairly easy for you. All right, I'm going to note just a couple of things. We're looking at second grade, and we are looking at making new words from sets of smaller words. All right, so 2 words to build a new word clearly describes a compound word. Most of you know this. 2 words, make a new word, compound word. That should lead you right there. This one's probably the most straightforward one we'll do today to answer choice D. Decode compound words, all right? Because that's what they're doing, is they're making compound words. The only one that references compound words is choice D. Working with compound words should help students recognize them and read them, or in other words, decode them quickly and accurately while reading, as it said in this answer choice. All right, The other answer choices do not align with the specific type of words being worked with in this scenario. So choice A would be like providing a root word such as work and prompting students to think about what it would mean to add a prefix such as re to make rework, or ing, working, and that is not what's described in this scenario. So we're taking two words, not adding prefixes and suffixes. We're not working with root words, okay? So choice A, we can rule out. All right, B describes the measures of fluency. So hopefully you know when you hear accuracy, rate, and prosody, we are looking at, this has to do with fluency. And there was nothing mentioned about fluency in this scenario or question. And C references general multisyllabic words. So multisyllabic words are not compound words, okay? So we can rule out answer choice C. This one's pretty straightforward. You can tell it's working with compound words, and only one answer choice presents compound words as an option. All right, let's look at our last question for today, guys. And this comes from Competency 8, and this has to do with fluency. So our only question on fluency today. It says a second grade teacher, so again, we're dealing with second grade, is working with students to develop their automaticity and recognizing high frequency words. I'm going to note a few things there. Second grade, automaticity, and recognizing high frequency words. Several English learners, all right, so we're looking at that again, students who are still learning English, English learners, often misread or omit high frequency prepositions. All right, there's another one. So we're looking at those high frequency prepositions, e.g. in, on, of, by, when reading connected text. Now, connected text just means it's in a sentence. It's not isolated. Which of the following strategies for differentiating instruction for the English learners would best scaffold their learning in order to promote their accuracy and automaticity in reading high-frequency, grade-level function words? So we're looking at how do we differentiate our instruction for our English learners to scaffold to where they are to get them better at reading these prepositions accurately and automatically, okay? So we know, because we're talking about English learners, are struggling to read the words accurately. I'm going to go back in connected text. That is key right there, connected text. So we're not reading them in isolation. That means that connected text means sentences are put together in a meaningful way. So we're looking for those meaningful sentences. All right. So let's look at what our options are. So A, constructing word grids of the target words so that the students can practice reading the words in isolation before reading a text that includes them. Now, something should jump out to you. I've kind of given it away. It says reading these words in isolation, and we're talking about them struggling to read them in connected text. So keep that in mind. B, having the students practice reading the target words in meaningful phrases that are illustrated to reinforce understanding. C, pointing out the parts of each target word that are and are not decodable and providing additional practice with the non-decodable elements. Now, high frequency words like in, on, there's issues there of is any part of that decodable, not decodable. It starts to get tricky when the words are that small. And D, engaging the students in a timed collaborative match game with a partner in which they try to improve their collective rate matching pairs of the target words. So we've got these target words here. And let's really look at which of these best differentiates the instruction for these English learners. All right, so we should look for a differentiated scaffold that directly supports the task. Choice B lets us know the words will be practiced in meaningful phrases, which is most directly related to connected text. Also, it says illustrated, all right? Visual supports, such as illustrations mentioned in this answer choice B, are best for practice for differentiating for English learners. So B is our correct answer. Now let's talk about why the others are not. Choices A, C, and D are not directly aligned with supporting students in reading these words in connected text. All right. Plus, they are missing that extra spotlight of being illustrated to help those English language learners. So again, they were reading these in isolation. All right. We're looking at decodable and non-decodable parts. So we're reading again in isolation. And here we're doing a match game, which is just going to have those words in isolation. So we're trying to scaffold that issue of being able to read it in a connected text in a meaningful way. So answer choice B is correct here. Now today, none of these questions were clustered questions. So I pulled out competencies that didn't have any clustered. So when you're going through the preparation manual, you will see these individual questions, and then you'll see some that are clustered where they give you a prompt, a scenario, a graphic, something, some data, and you use that to answer more than one question. Each of these questions had their own prompt. So we had no clustered questions today. We did a few of those the past 2 weeks. So if you're interested in seeing some of those, go back and check it out. Now I'm going to give you a few general tips before we call it time for today. Remember, it's important that you know your test format. We at 240 Tutoring recommend that you leave yourself 1 hour for your CRQ if you've practiced writing it. If you've never practiced writing one, it might take you longer than that, but you need to practice writing that. And then give yourself a little less than 4 hours for those selected response questions. You need to practice pacing yourself. As you can see, these are wordy. You have to pick them apart and really think about it. And so you need practice with pacing so that you don't look up and you've spent 4 hours and you still have 20 multiple choice questions and you still have your CRQ. So that pacing has to be practiced. You need to know your research and you need to know the pedagogy. As you saw, none of these just ask you a direct question about the alphabetic principle or what is fluency. They're not that simple. All of these questions are put in an instructional scenario. It's a pedagogical exam. So not only do you need to know the concepts and terminology and vocabulary, but you've got to be able to apply it in those scenarios to answer those questions. All right. Now, you've got to find some good study resources, all right? The preparation manual, which I showed you a link to, is right there on the ETS website, and it has those 25 questions with the rationales. You're gonna need those other 25 questions, which you can find the rationales right here in these videos with me, but you're gonna need to pull outside resources. So if you come across something that you're like, I really don't know what that is, seek out your professors, your textbooks, other test preparation resources, things like 240 Tutoring. We already have a study guide published for the Science of Teaching Reading exam. So if you want that link, drop me a comment and I will give you that link where you can go check that out. You're going to need a study plan. You're going to need a diagnostic test. As part of that study plan at 240 Tutoring, we offer a free one. I can give you a link to that as well. I'll show you the link in just a moment. See where you're weak, see where you're strong, and then develop a plan of how you're going to study and how you're going to prepare for this test. It is not a test many people are going to be able to go in and take cold and do well on. You will need some preparation time. All right. So if you want more information on our study guides, you can go to 240tutoring.com/study guides, study-guides, and you can find our study guide for the Science of Teaching Reading exam. If you want to check out some of our free resources, you can go to 240tutoring.com/resources. You will find that free diagnostic exam. So you can take a test and see what you know and what you don't know, and an abundance of other free resources. If you want more videos like this, again, like I said earlier in the video, we are on Facebook. This Facebook group should have all the videos I've done on the Science of Teaching Reading exam. They are also on our YouTube channel. So if you want to go check them out, we have videos for Science of Teaching Reading as well as a bunch of other TExES exams. So I hope you have found this video helpful, and I thank you all for joining me. Again, if you're watching this after this live has ended, please feel free to drop in a comment. I will come back and answer it. If you're watching this on YouTube, go check out our Facebook TExES study and test prep group. So just search 240 Tutoring on Facebook and then look at groups and you'll find it there. So I thank you all for joining me. I wish you the best of luck as you prepare for this exam. Again, I'm Dr. Christy Mulkey with 240 Tutoring.